Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider, as well as lead Lakers content creator for Offside. Joined on this fine Monday night, we are eschewing the usual Tuesday afternoon or evening festivities because tomorrow is the NBA draft. And seeing as Harrison is solely responsible for every piece of content that goes up regarding anything basketball for SB Nation, it makes it really difficult for him to, podcast for any amount of time for tomorrow. So the plan for this one is that he and I would preview, set the table for tomorrow's draft, take a look at the Lakers offseason so far, in an underratedly with one, I think somehow, some way undercovered factor at play, that being the fact that this would be the year that if things don't go well, NBA superstars would start, telling their team to move whatever chess pieces need to be moved in preparation for their eventual departure from a team that they might be frustrated with. So that's going to be the plan for this one. To make up for Harrison not being there for tomorrow's draft day, the plan is actually to have Raj on the show for tomorrow's draft as soon as he gets home from his 9 to 5. So you guys are going to be well taken care of. And we have plenty of good stuff lined up for you guys, not just the next couple of days, but obviously as the offseason unfolds. Harrison, 'twas the night before the draft, and all throughout the house, not a creature was stirring, not even your computer mouse. Do you use a trackboard, or do you just use
I use an ergonomic mouse. That probably doesn't surprise you.
That was a perfect entry into the show. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm a little insulted that you've said that Raj could make up for me. You're like, oh, we'll make up for Harrison. There's no making up for me not being there. Come on, like Raj cannot replace the level of insight that I bring to this program, especially around things like the draft that I'm like so well informed on. And
you're like right now. You sound like Jaylen Brown, who is like, Giannis is a downgrade for me. What are you talking about?
You know what's funny is I haven't seen him say that, but I actually believe that
100% believes it.
No, I believe, like, you telling me that, I was about to go to social media and be like, has a new clip from his stream come
out? Yeah. No, what I really wanted was for some like Austin Reeves, Jaylen Brown trade rumors to start popping up, like Austin to Boston in a sign and trade, and Jaylen being like offended that Boston would trade him for Austin Reeves. And this like the subtext of all of his stuff as Boston trades for a 1-2. It would just be incredible. But instead it's Giannis, which
the discourse that trade would create might just take down the internet finally. Like that might be it. It might be enough. Like that's the way that we defeat AI and the data centers and all of this stuff is we do an Austin Reeves for Jaylen Brown sign and trade. All the servers are going to burn down. We're starting from square one, Stone Ages, back to sort of tactile manual electronics. No more computers. That's the Butlerian jihad right there. It's over.
Would we be better off? Feel like we would.
I mean, you and I personally, probably not, but society maybe.
Yeah. So today on the show, we're going to be, like I said, setting the table for this NBA draft. We're going to talk about the 2026 plan or Project 2026 from the Lakers standpoint. We're going to revisit it. And
I love that you're mad at them, and so now you're using the title for the project before that they like yelled at you for, and you were like, okay, yeah, you're right, that's like offensive. I shouldn't call it that. But you're mad enough at how they've approached the offseason so far that you've went back to Project 2026.
Look, man, you respect is earned, not given. Today we're also going to talk about our expectations of the Lakers for this upcoming draft. They hold pick number 25. Do we think that they are going to use it? Do we think that they are going to trade it? And again, the backdrop for all of this is the fact that Luka could opt out in as few as a couple of seasons from now. And like I said, this is when most superstars start planting seeds for eventual departures, and they usually do that, Harrison, for teams that they care. There are a lot more emotional connections to that team than Luka has with this Lakers franchise, right? So I think that is something that is always very important to keep in mind here. It was also a really interesting weekend from my standpoint, from a reporting, like, as far as stuff that I reported, had, I still 100% stand behind my reporting that the Lakers spoke to Detroit about Isaiah Stewart and that they spoke to Milwaukee about a potential either addition to a Giannis trade or the fallout from a Giannis trade. I've seen some people using Mark Stein's reporting as a reason to throw dirt on what I reported, and I want to talk about some of that stuff if we have a little bit of time.
You're gonna make me pick between like one of my mentors and you. I'm gonna have to defend your honor against Stein.
Well, that's part of the point, is that it won't be a choice that anybody has to make here. So we will, if we have time, we'll get to that. And then as always, if we have time, we will get to as many of your questions as we possibly can over the course of the show. But yeah, quick reminder, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications for the show, turn on notifications for YouTube so you get the notifications for the show. And if you guys are listening to the show in the morning via podcast, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get them, preferably on Odyssey, but I truly do not care where it is that you get them. And as always, this show is brought to you in video form in part by Prize Picks. Use that promo code HMA and make a $5 lineup of your own and get $50 worth of free lineups on Prize Picks. All right, so let's go ahead and I want to start, Harrison. I want to kind of like lay the groundwork for this entire conversation with the expectations that were set for us by the Lakers by way of this whole summer of 2026 plan, right? And the player at the center of those plans back when we were hearing about them was Giannis, right? And also to a certain extent Jokic, but mostly Giannis. And to give credit to the Lakers, like, all due credit to them, they did foresee that by this summer he would be made openly available and even likely moved this summer. That was something that the Lakers foresaw. What I think they took for granted was that Giannis would see joining the Lakers as this, incredible opportunity, and took for granted that, Giannis had his own preferences in terms of geography and conference and whatever else factors into his choice to lean more towards playing on the East Coast versus coming and playing on the West Coast. And as it now appears to be, the Lakers, who at the very, very least, Harrison, built at least some of their plans around the notion that they could potentially land Giannis, have not factored into the situation even a little bit. And so, like, as you've seen this all play out, and as you've seen how little noise has ever popped up about the Lakers' chances at Giannis, how have you kind of responded to that. Did you ever think that this was a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going all the way back to the beginning, I do think that it is, of course, I think we all thought it was like a possibility. It's like if you look at if you're 2 years out and you look at the math and you look at who's a free agent and you see, okay, things like aren't going that well in Milwaukee. Like, Giannis has sort of been flirting with an exit for a while now. Of course, it was always sort of, I think, reasonable to consider that it would be a possibility. And, maybe not like a realistic goal, because it's never realistic to like have one team trade for, one of these like top 5 guys. It's always going to be sort of like, there's going to be a lot of teams that end up getting involved in that or that are linked to it. Like, you're going to have competition for a guy of Giannis's stature, and he's going to exert some level of control over where he goes. But like, I think it was reasonable for the Lakers to think that they had a shot at him at that point. I guess depending on their intel, like if their intel at the time 2 years ago was like they called Giannis's agent and they would, of course, never tamper or anything like that. But like his agent kept unprompted bringing up how much Giannis hates Los Angeles. If that was the intel that they had, then I'd say, okay, yeah, that's a bad plan to bank on, he's just going to change his mind and he wants to be in LA. But if they didn't really know that at the time necessarily, or they didn't necessarily believe that, they thought that maybe there was a chance that he would see the opportunity to come here. Maybe they thought that once they traded for Luka, that was going to be an appealing running mate for Giannis. I think that it was reasonable to like take a swing at that. But instead, what we've gotten is, it's sort of like you said, they've never substantively been linked to him really at all. Like, they've never been in this in any real way. It doesn't seem like it. This would be very funny audio if they trade for him tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah,
we're like, yeah, they've never been in it, and then he's a Laker.
Yeah,
but
you and I both get like the phone note, like the Twitter notification, according to Shams Charania.
Yeah,
but no,
I believe he was hacked again. Just like the Luka trade. We could, every trade the Lakers make from now on, it's going to be so out of left field that we're all going to think Shams was hacked. It's like an annual tradition.
Yeah.
And so I think, I just, for me, what it really boils down to is putting all your eggs in one basket and being like, hey, we sort of learned this lesson. Most teams learned this lesson like back in like 2010. And that was a much better sort of free agent class, star class, whatever, when it's like, hey, what if 1/3 of the league tried to keep cap space open for LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh? And it turns out those guys all signed with the same team. And so it's like the Bulls are like, hey, Carlos Boozer, you want to max? The Knicks are maxing Amari Stoudemire. And, it's just like those are good players, but those are not who you sold your fans on punting several years for. And that is sort of, to me, that was the tactical mistake with the Lakers here was, if you're sort of doing the like, hey, and especially much less the fans, if you're selling this to Luka as, hey, man, just wait 2 years. Like, we're going to get you a running mate. There's going to be, here are all the guys that are going to be available that summer. And then you don't do it. It's like that ESPN quote from, I guess I can't legally say his agent, but whatever source close to him that was, that said, we've been excited because Rob's been talking about the summer of 2026 and now it's here. And so we're excited to see all the moves the team makes. That is, to me, the first step of laying the groundwork of like, hey, we're happy right now, but if this plan that you've been selling us on, that like, hey, this is the big summer, we make some big moves, we're connected, if that turns into, I think we got Luke Kennard back at a reasonable number, and Austin's got his max, so he's locked in. I think that becomes a tougher sell at that point to Luka. And like, oh, LeBron's gone, but we did get Tobias Harris, so I think we got our big three now.
Yeah, though it does. Like, all right, so here's where I think aspects of the summer so far kind of mesh together in a way that I think is worth noting, in that, like, heading into this summer, Rob Pelinka, JJ Redick, and well, I guess more specifically, Rob Pelinka told us we're adding 2 assistant GMs. We are building out this front office. We're looking to do all, we're building out the infrastructure of this organization. We are modernizing
the Pelicans front office in Los Angeles under Rob Pelinka.
Yeah. We're Dodger-fying the Lakers, right? And Lakers fans who are also Dodgers fans, myself included, were like, yes, that sounds great. Let's do that. And then over the course of that process, right, it's been like not great. That we are less than 24 hours from the NBA draft, and they don't have their draft centric assistant GM. I know people will keep on bringing up Tony Bennett as this like incredible hire and an incredible addition to the Lakers front office, but right after he was hired, Rob Pelinka made sure to link with the quickness that was like, no, just so you guys know, like he's a consultant, right? Like he's gonna pop in, answer some emails, and then pop back out when we're interested in talking to him about like tougher wings and stuff. Like and part of the reason that the Lakers have struggled in filling out their front office and hiring for this position kind of most specifically has been the fact that they have gone back to the practice of just working for the Lakers is payments enough, right? Like you get the fact that you get to put the Lakers on your resume, that makes it worth it more than anything. Like those increased rent payments that you guys have, you can sleep soundly knowing that after you work for us, that some other team will pay you enough money to live in LA.
I like that you said rent, because on the assistant GM salaries, they're evidently offering, if they haven't found anyone to take it yet, I think the person will be renting and not buying.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, like somebody was like, well, how come you haven't applied? And I was like, I don't know that I would move to LA for the number that they are offering some of these people.
Okay, come on. Yes, you would.
But like, no, but it's like, the reason that I bring that up, Harrison, is because it's the same thinking that led them to believe that Giannis was on the table, right? Of course, Giannis wants to be a superstar in LA playing for the Lakers. Of course that like we have Luka now. Of course he would want to play with Luka on the Lakers.
And the second prong of that, which is the Rob Pelinka, genie bus Lakers exceptionalism. Like, if you don't want to play for the Lakers and us, we don't want you anyway, and you're a loser.
Exactly. Yeah. It's what we've, how long, Harrison, have you and I have recorded this specific segment where it's like, there's a very distinct and critical difference between Lakers exceptionalism in a positive sense and a negative sense. In the positive sense, Lakers exceptionalism means that every single person in that organization is held to an exceptional standard. And that is what leads the Lakers brand under Dr. Bus being a solid gold brick.
Yeah.
Fast forward to where things have been under the Bus kids, and it's been this gold-plated piece of lead, right? And it's the, what has happened and what has taken place over the years is you have a whole bunch of people thinking that they are exceptional simply because they represent the Los Angeles Lakers. And in reality,
and then they're like, why wouldn't other people want to be as exceptional as me by representing the Los Angeles Lakers? Isn't that enough?
This is where LeBron showing up actually, I think, like allowed Genie and that whole camp to like double down on this belief, when in reality, LeBron and his camp saw the Lakers as a weak organization that they could step into a power vacuum with. Like, that's what was going on there. He wanted to, he had his projects
ended up being
there.
Very correct.
Yeah, well, for a little while. But like he saw the projects that he had off of the court, and he saw this weak organization that he felt he and his team could step into that power vacuum and help run. And for a while, things were going really, really well there. And then eventually the Russell Westbrook trade happened and everything kind of eroded from there. But like, this is, this whole like Giannis thing, basing any aspect of their future plans or keeping powder dry for the sake of trading for Giannis, with the sentiment being, well, of course he'll want to be a Laker. Like, who wouldn't want to be a Laker? That in and of itself, that's got to go. Like, it they have to stop thinking that way. And it's not just a superstar thing. It's it's a candidate thing with some of the people that they're looking to hire. It's an entire mentality that, like, I cannot wait for the day that Mark Walter fires all of these people to just completely carve out that rot. Like, I literally, it's funny, we're recording this. I have this cut on my finger that happened because this dude was swimming laps in our community pool and he ran over my son. And I had like race over there and like swoop my son up from the bottom of the pool. And I like cut the bottom of my hand on a community pool. You can only imagine the shit that got into my finger that day. So like, eventually,
good news is you're going to be immune to like 25 different viruses for the next 2 years because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. If I ever had cancer, it's actually cured now. How about that?
Yeah.
But so like, I believe. So I had wrapped it in a Band-Aid and I had put some Neosporin on it, but it eventually got infected. And what you need to do with a cut like that gets infected is you actually need to, like, Jen and I were talking about this. She was like, you're going to have to rip that thing off of there. You're going to have to like get rid of that shit that's got to leave your finger so that when you put the Neosporin on it again, it can actually seep into the cut beyond that finger. And that's where I see Rob Pelinka. That's how I see Jeannie Buss. That's how I see the Rambi. That's how I see all of these people is, this entire, like this infected presence that like, I just think the Lakers need to move on from. And like this whole Giannis thing, and it's been funny how it's played out. When it was like, originally it was called the Giannis Plan, right? It was reported and called the Giannis Plan, and then it eventually became, well, we're just looking to like benefit from the Giannis trade. Maybe the Knicks will trade for Giannis and OG Anunoby will become available, or maybe it'll be like Jaden McDaniels and he'll become available.
Man, think about that. That's a good timeline where the Lakers end up with OG in the aftermath of like a disappointing Knicks finals run and get like sort of the perfect guy alongside Luka.
Right. It's like they could trade for, maybe it's Miami who trades for him, and the Lakers get, like, most recent, like literally as of this weekend, that was something that the Lakers were hoping to happen. Was that
Rob's waiting for the Giannis trade so that he can get in on the Tyler Hero aftermath? He's like, hell yeah. Another white combo guard. Let's go.
Did you see Darren Peterson called himself a combo guard today?
Well, I mean, he is, isn't he?
Well, no, but like he like specifically called himself a combo guard, and I laughed. I was like, oh shit, that means that Rob is gonna trade Luka for the #1 overall pick and try to draft Darren Peterson.
He doesn't even want to see the medicals. He's just like, he's good. I like this guy.
Yeah. But yeah,
the game is about a bucket.
That's where I kind of find myself looking back on this whole like Project 2026 or the Giannis Plan or whatever like silly title that was associated with this thing. Is just like the people who are responsible for this, as all of the eggs were placed into the basket of succeeding in this specific summer, where they need to take a 53-win team that would lose key pieces and still improve despite losing key pieces for the sake of optionality. I just think it always felt like a doomed process. And now we arrive here at the final 16 hours of Giannis Antetokounmpo being a Milwaukee Buck. The reason I paused there is because Shams is reporting that Julius Randle is going to the Brooklyn Nets for Nick Claxton. Julius Randle and number 28 for Nick Claxton, who would go to the Bulls.
That's actually brutal for Julius to end up back in New York right after the Knicks won a title playing for the Nets.
Yeah, right. For that team.
That's a bad break.
The Wolves will acquire. Let's see. So the Bulls get Claxton. The Wolves get Brooklyn's number 33 pick, so not even a first rounder for Randall and number 28.
I mean, the Randall contract, I think, is seen as negative value.
Sure, but that's still kind of.
But could could this be their setting? This was the price to set up their books for some kind of Giannis deal. Like, we know that they've been trying to tangentially get into that.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to cost either Randall or Gobert. So
yeah,
I guess now is the time that we start paying attention to Minnesota. And look, maybe imagine the entire segment that we just recorded about Jaden McDaniels, not being available.
Shakes loose.
No,
yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. I just think that, like, if I were Luka, and my first impressions of being a Laker so far, I think he legitimately and sincerely loves the Lakers like fan base, and I think he really enjoyed this last season playing for the Lakers. I just cannot fathom that he is particularly impressed by Rob Pelinka and that entire front office.
Well, okay, but I think it's important to make the point here. You're going, as you usually do, like Chicken Little, and you're just like, Giannis isn't a Laker yet. The plan has failed. Nothing good is going to happen to the Lakers ever again until Rob Pelinka is fired. And then,
it's not Giannis is not a Laker yet. It's that Giannis is not going to be a Laker, flat out.
Yeah,
like that dream is dead.
I mean, that seems unlikely, but my point is that, the cap space plan, as actually, I really became fond of
Trill Bro Dude. The third iteration of this plan here, though.
Trill Bro Dude on Ball, when the Sixers they were saving up cap space. He kept calling it the cope space plan. And it was just like a way to cope with, they were wasting a year. And then it ended up, like, quote unquote working, and they signed Paul George to, like, one of the worst contracts in the NBA. So, even when this stuff works, it can you don't really know if it worked until down the line. But the reason I say all this is to say that, like, we haven't seen what they're going to do with their flexibility yet. Just because they have not made a move yet, it's still like there's still time for the draft. There's still time before free agency. Like, they could, just because they haven't been linked to anything yet, does not mean that the plan has failed. Now, that said, what I don't want to hear coming out of this, like, you have to do something. And you have to make the team meaningfully better. And all the things that you said about how do you improve 53-win team while possibly losing LeBron or other key pieces and things like that, like, those are all real concerns. And I think that they deserve a chance to attempt to do that, actually, and, like, take this offseason and attempt to address those concerns. And, if they have a really good offseason, then obviously you and I are both going to be really happy. But the thing that I don't want to hear after the offseason, if they do nothing or if they do very little, is never want to hear,
like, not even like very little or nothing, not enough.
If they don't set out their goal, which is to, like, build a championship contender, or at least get within a stone's throw of that, then I don't want to hear about a house not being for sale. Not being able to buy a house that's not for sale. Because if you were a realtor and you told people, hey, unload all the money from the stock market, get yourself as liquid as possible, like, we're going to make some bids on houses and we're going to get a house for you. And then you kept coming back to them, and being the realtor kept coming back to you and was like, hey, just haven't been able to get a house. I keep putting in bids, but, like, these people, they don't want to sell their houses. And it's like, well, have you tried buying a house that's for sale? And planning for that. That's your job, is to plan for the market and find, an attractive, like, and deliver on this promise that you are making. And, it's very much TBD. This is not me, like, caping for Rob Pelinka and being like, just hashtag trust Rob or whatever. It's just that we still need to see when and if this Giannis deal happens, which seems like it's going to happen in the next, day or so. Can the Lakers get in on the aftermath of that to get a meaningful player? We were talking about early, we started off the show talking about the Jaylen Brown, Austin Reeves sign and trade. I'm not saying a Jaylen Brown, Austin Reeves sign and trade, but, if Jaylen Brown is a guy that shakes loose in that, is that a guy that you can use your cap space to go get and, pair alongside Luka? Again, wherever these dominoes fall and wherever these musical chairs go, it's going to be similar to the last couple big superstar transactions, where somebody really good becomes available because they were sort of seen as like a way to get extra assets for the team trading the star. Sort of like Drew Holiday. I always think about Drew Holiday in Portland after the Dame trade, and the Celtics were able to go in there and get him. And I think that's the sort of move that you have to be targeting here. And TBD if, any players that I or the Lakers actually want shake loose in this Giannis transaction. But there's going to be stuff like that. There's going to be teams that are missing out on Giannis that then have to pivot. And there's still a lot of offseason left, or at least, there's like a week or two
all
of
the
meaningful offseason left.
Yeah.
Well, there's a week or two of probably like meaningful offseason where deck chairs are actually going to move left. And then after that, things will most likely get quieter. Maybe there'll be some stuff in August when like teams who missed out on all their plan A, B, and C are sort of making guys available that weren't before. But that's like one transaction a year. That's not that many. And so I don't necessarily want to bank on that. But the Lakers, they have to do something here, but they still have time to do something.
Yeah, they have all day tomorrow, the rest of tonight, right? Like, as much as this might be a Giannis, something that would precludes Giannis to Minnesota for whatever reason, even though that hasn't been on the radar basically at all over the last day or so, according to kind of the national newsbreaker types. Like this also could just be Minnesota freeing up money to be able to retain Ayo Dosunmu, as that roster continues to get more and more expensive just organically. That is somebody who they gave up real capital to acquire and then really liked him when they got there. So this might just be, something that they're doing to be able to pay him. Also, as some people in the chat have noted, this takes up a significant chunk of Brooklyn's cap space that would otherwise, at least as a threat, could have gone to Austin Reeves. Which, and then also, but for that matter, the Chicago Bulls just took Nick Claxton into their cap space as well. And the Bulls are one of the other, one of the three teams that actually have meaningful cap space this year, the other one being the Lakers. So, even while Trae Young got such a payday that I'm sure, Austin's camp was like, well, are we at least as good as that guy? Like, can we get that kind of a payday? The market is just, as it tends to happen.
And that's what Austin's camp should do. But I will say the same thing that I said, in the aftermath of the Bradley Beal deal, like again, like directly in the aftermath, when it was clear that was a horrible contract from the moment it was signed. It's just like, them being stupid doesn't mean we have to be stupid.
Right. Yeah. It's super duper telling that over the course of the day, the best defense that the Wizards or Wizards fans had for the Trae Young contract is, well, where else are we going to spend the money? And look, as somebody who's
like when you buy a country club membership, you're like, well, Jen, what else would we even spend the money? What else would we even spend the money on?
Yeah. It's like if I go to the grocery store and come back with nothing but wine, and Jen goes, "What? Why?" Like, babe, what else are we going to spend the money on?
Not even wine.
Food.
Paid it was like $400 a bottle of wine. You were just like, well, I had all this money in my savings account. What was I going to do? Keep it in there? Use it for something else? Come on, there's nothing else good I could have spent it on. I gotta give me more Trae Young. Yeah.
But yeah, just to kind of like, put a bow on this, at least before we fully move on. To me, the lesson to take from this, beyond the the infected scab analogy that I used a second ago, but
I believe the clutch points graphic from the show was going to be pond scum, pool scum, and then it was just going to be a picture of Rob Pelinka.
Yeah, but like, to me, I would hope, whether it's Rob Pelinka or whoever one day mercifully takes over for Rob Pelinka, the lesson here is that, like, you cannot possibly just bank on a single offseason to build a roster that you're promising your superstar. These things take years. These things take like series of smart decision after smart decision after smart decision, and it requires years of organizational investment so that, like, the youth that you bring into your organization is also developed and maximized. It, like, you don't just like wake up one day and be like, yeah, we want to trade for Giannis today and fix everything. Like that's not how this NBA works. It takes, like, you look at the Knicks. That took 2 coaches to eventually arrive at where the Knicks did to win a
2
championship.
coaches and tons of transactions and playoff failures and opportunities for the team to grow together as a unit.
Yeah, it took OKC completely bottoming out to the extent that they did and maximizing all of the youth and talent that they've had walk through those hallways. It took the Spurs bottoming out and the league rigging multiple lotteries for them so that they could eventually arrive where they eventually arrived. But like with the Lakers, this notion of like, yeah, summer of 2026, man, we got you, Luka. Like, I'm sorry. That's the greatest way to risk losing a Luka Doncic, is to be like, it all just comes down to the summer, buddy. And then you arrive at the summer and you're like, shit, all of the best options are restricted. What do we do? Giannis wants to be in the East. What now what? No, Luka, we're great. No, we're solid. We're doing fantastic over here. This is just GM not how you build a viable organization.
Googling, can we get Greece closer to Los Angeles? And like faster planes.
Yeah, he like goes to Mark Walter. All right, so we think we have a shot at Giannis. All it's going to take is access to your own private jet out of LAX whenever he wants it. Isn't that illegal? Not according to Adam Silver with the Clippers. So let's talk about the draft that is coming up tomorrow and preparation for it. As I said earlier, the Lakers have pick number 25 in this year's draft. And according to, most of the mocks that you kind of look at, there are some potential centers that are at least intriguing as like a year away from being a couple of years away type of project. They could, draft somebody for another team and maintain their Stepien flexibility as well, which is something I think we should probably be on the lookout for. Going into tomorrow's draft, Harrison, what's your confidence level at? Great. Fantastic.
Yeah. Draft day has not historically been a great day for Rob Pelinka transactions.
No, not the last couple of years.
Well, you got Dalton Connect, Jalen Hood-Schifino, when they do use the picks. You got Russell Westbrook when they don't. It's, it's been a rough couple of years. It's like very hard for me to be looking forward to draft day. And also, it's like one of the busiest days of my personal year. And so, I mean, maybe that's like feeding in here where I'm like Eeyore and I'm like, oh, there's going to be a lot of work tomorrow. But I don't know. I'm not a draft guy. You didn't bring me on to talk about prospects or guys that I've been grinding tape on and stuff like that. Like,
I don't know if anybody noticed here. I never brought any draft people on to the show in advance of this draft.
Not a bad call. You could always bring them on after. It's like, why are we going to waste our time trying to guess at guys that might get taken 20 something picks in when we think there's like a decent chance they'll just trade the pick anyway?
Yeah. That was part of my thinking, was that like
I think I don't know. I took optimism is the stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only reason for optimism is the stuff that I was talking about before, that, they still have time to use this cap space in a productive way, and they still have the picks. They haven't made their move yet. They haven't made a move that we don't like. And so there's reason for optimism, just in the sense of like they haven't fucked up yet and they have a chance to succeed. But that I also, again, just like based on past years, am not sitting here just like, oh man, I can't wait for draft day. I know Rob, real G's move in silence, and I know Rob's
lasagna.
got something cooking.
Yeah, I am. Look, I'm looking forward to the draft because I just enjoy draft day, like in a draft day that is probably going to be kicked off by a Giannis trade usually leads to just utter madness around the league throughout draft day. So like in that sense, like just as an NBA fan, I'm really looking forward to it. As you noted, draft day for the Lakers, ever since Rob Pelinka started taking more and more ownership of the draft process, has not gone particularly well for the Lakers. And that makes me really nervous, in that they haven't exactly added to that team within their organization in preparation for tomorrow. What do you make of them not filling that seat, the assistant GM, the draft focused assistant GM seat, before tomorrow?
To me, it's, I know that I just don't know enough about the inner workings to really have like a strong opinion on it. For all we know, Tony Bennett could be very involved in like grinding tape and scouting guys and sending Rob his recommendations and stuff like that. But, so I'm like less sort of concerned about that, also because, again, I just don't think that they're going to use this pick. I think they're going to end up trading it in some sort of transaction, and whether that's a good one or not, TBD. But I'm not as worried about that, just because they already announced that they have like a special consultant for draft stuff. I'm fairly sure they have hired scouts, at some point in the interim from letting their scouting staff go last, winter, and like brought some in, and that they have an apparatus in place there. To me, the assistant GM focused on draft stuff was always like, that's a building out your organization long-term thing, where, okay, we have this assistant GM that he just grinds college tape all year. It's in the spirit of Dodgerifying the Lakers. We have this one guy who is in charge of acting as our GM of the draft, and then we have this guy that's in charge of like being our GM of salary cap planning, and you're sort of spreading that work around so that people can focus more on their strengths. And so I think ultimately that will be a good thing for the Lakers, to sort of split up that power and have more brain power devoted to this stuff. But for this specific draft, I'm not that worried about it. And to me, like, I know that you said the Tony Bennett leak was Rob sort of making it clear, hey, this guy's not replacing me, I still have power here, whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to defer to that guy. And, I think it was more of just like, I don't want fans to get too excited that he's like coming in to take my job.
Yeah, I think there's some middle ground in there for the reality to exist. To me, like, the Rob Pelinka is the same guy who, while Magic Johnson was technically his boss, was walking around the offices asking people if they had seen his boss. Like, that person who is that politically savvy within the confines of the Lakers apparatus, like that is somebody who, look, the whole like Tony Bennett thing, like to me, the way I took that leak was like, hey, yeah, Tony Bennett is here and he's helping here, that, get excited about the name, but also if we do something good here, just know who was responsible for the good thing that we did here, and I don't know, man, like I'm just really kind of sick of that aspect of covering the Lakers, right? Like, I just want, like, Pete and I talked about this the other day, and actually, I think Pete used the term hate. Like, he hates that aspect of the way that the Lakers work, or that Rob Pelinka works, where there is such a central focus on remaining employed that we don't know about Rob's basketball ideology, because if Rob commits to a basketball ideology and it doesn't pan out, that puts him at risk of getting fired. And
Yeah.
whereas it's a lot more likely that you remain employed if all you do is, execute the wishes of your superstar, of your head coach, and then go to owners and be like, look, guys, look, Jeannie, this is what these guys wanted. What do you want
I'm
me to
just
do
here to
here?
facilitate their wishes, and keep
Right.
them happy.
And so like that's something that like is probably worth a conversation at a later date. As far as like tomorrow's draft goes, I'm with you. I don't like if the late I'm not going to get into whether or like what people are telling me about the uh the 25th pick and what the Lakers are looking to do with it. All I can say is that I hope that they don't use it, because that if they do use it on a player, that limits them to one first round pick that they can use, um while still holding on to the one first round pick that Rob likes to enter a season with, right? This is where like the last couple of seasons, the Lakers, you would hear about, in the run up to whatever draft it was, you would hear leaks that like the Lakers are looking forward to the upcoming draft when they have 3 first round picks at their disposal, and then they use one of those picks, and it's like, oh, so that means they only have 1 first round pick at their disposal now, because he doesn't like to go into a year with 0 first round picks. And that's why if they
And then
don't
that way
use
at the deadline, he can say, well, there wasn't a guy worth a first round pick.
right. So like this 25th pick that the Lakers have, like I think Lakers fans, what you really honestly should be hoping for, beyond the reason of like what the Lakers have done with their previous first round picks the last couple of, bites at the apple that they've taken, beyond that, what you should really be looking for is, or hoping for, is that pick number 25 and one of their future first round picks are combined in some kind of a trade, um, to bring in the win now help that Luka Doncic is really kind of expecting. And because Rob's job is kind of on the line in that regard, I think that's how this plays out.
And it's also worth noting that, if we're thinking of future excuses for him to use, teams have been, I forget which podcaster was it was one of the national guys, but was talking about how they're hearing that teams are really, really scared to trade picks past this like lottery reform date, because they don't know if, like, right now this is a trial run for how these new rules are going to work, and that could revert back in like 2029, I believe is the soonest it could. And so teams are worried about trading picks that far out, because what if tanking's back on the table again? Or what if the odds now are all of a sudden go way up for my mid pick to be really good? And so I should, or for me to look really bad because my mid pick jumped up to the first, first overall, and I sent it out the door for just like an okay player. So I think, that's not just going to be a Rob thing. That's going to be like most GMs, I think, are going to be scared of trading those further out picks for that reason.
I mean, I think that's part of why Trae Young signed for 4 years today, was because the Wizards didn't see an opportunity, or the same opportunity, in bottoming out without Trae Young on their roster as they did before the anti-tanking rules were put in place. I also think, though, this is where, again, like having a GM with foresight and a vision of his own that he is looking to execute, or they are looking to execute, is critical. The fact that, like, every time, Harrison, you and I talk about, like, whether it's on the air or off of it, every time you and I talk about what we think Rob is getting ready to do, it is almost never, if not outright never, through the prism of what we think he thinks a team needs, other than combo guards. It is always
seems to be the one prevailing basketball philosophy beyond, as you said, keeping his job, that Rob has, is that you need as many 6'4" combo guards as you can get.
Yeah. An update on the Austin Reeves free agency front. Keith Smith, obviously, of Spotrac. He does work with Trevor Lane as well. Updated 2026 cap space projections factoring in the Brooklyn, Chicago, Minnesota trade. The Lakers sit in the top spot with $52.1 million. That is obviously
hell
if they
yeah, number
renounce,
one, Rob
yeah,
Pelinka, baby.
if that is if they renounce LeBron James and Rui Hachimura, and if like I would imagine, okay, Lakers projection includes Reeves cap hold and Ayton opt in, but no other cap holds. So that means Smart opts out, LeBron and Rui are rescinded. And then from there, you have the Nets at 36.1, which means if they would want to offer Austin Reeves his max, they would have to do some work to open it up. And same goes for the Bulls, who sit a little below them now at $32.5 million in cap space. But yeah, I think that like with this upcoming draft, I don't think it's going to happen. But someday, honestly, I don't think we're going to see it happen ever because of how Rob operates. But like, if Rob is eventually replaced, I think the number one question that like Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi and Mark Walter would eventually have to ask is, what is your basketball vision? And we'll see what comes of that.
I would actually love to hear Rob's answer to that in a press conference.
Yeah, like what style of basketball would you like to see the team that you are in charge of
The
play?
problem is he would just duck it. He'd be like, I'd like to work in collaboration with Luka, and we envision a team with a lot of he'd come up with whatever their new version of thrust is. New word that's never been used in basketball before.
Yeah. It's
he's like, we just believe that a team's got to have heft.
No.
We just are the acronym that we're, it's a great question, Anthony, but the acronym that we're living by is JUICE.
Yeah, no, bucket gettability is the factor in, and you get me a bucket. All right, let's see. I'm gonna while I prepare to scroll through the comments here. Let's really quickly dive into the subject of Luka potentially leaving. And the reason that I think it is,
so let's just really quickly touch on the nightmare scenario,
Well, I don't think it's worth spending an entire show on.
Yeah. No,
right?
I'm with you. It's just funny. It's like, let's really 5 minutes. Let's just scare people at the end of the show. And then maybe if there's some super comments.
Well, but like, I think we kind of did. By the way, you're muted. But we kind of did hint at like whether or not Luka could leave or why he would if he did and all that stuff. Like if you've been listening and paying attention to what we've been talking about, it shouldn't be difficult to read between the lines, especially with could Luka Doncic leave outlined there at the bottom of us, down below. But like the could Luka Doncic leave question. I saw that AM 570, I think it was Andy and Ireland were having this conversation. John Ireland, obviously voice of the Lakers.
I was assuming you didn't mean the country of Ireland. And Andy Kamenetsky and the Irish ambassador to the US were talking about the Lakers cap space options.
Well, the reason I mentioned that John Ireland is the radio voice of the Lakers is that he gets his checks, at least in whatever way, signed by the team. He was of the opinion that no way Luka wouldn't leave. Come on. And I thought Andy, to his credit, was like, wait, what? Yes, of course he could leave. And I thought it was interesting that was taking place on airwaves of a corporate partner of the Los Angeles Lakers, right? AM 710. So yeah, I'll ask you, Harrison, like, how how real a threat should the Lakers consider this?
If I think that ultimately not that real of a threat yet, because again, we need to see how the plan shakes out and how happy is Luka with how this summer shakes out. And that's obviously unknowable until mid-July, August, whatever, training camp, maybe even, given how Luka sort of operates and like isn't that available and like out there with the media doing podcasts, stuff like that during the offseason. Like we just may not know where he's at, unless if it's a home run offseason, I expect like Luka will have his like comms team put together a tweet for him just saying like, honored to continue this franchise tradition. Like, I love his tweets because they're like so not his voice. If you've ever heard him interview, it's like, It's incredible. Like they don't even pretend that it's Luka.
Yeah. No, I laughed the other day at the leak of Jalen Brunson put something on his like LinkedIn, and part of the report was that like, and word is that Jalen Brunson is involved to some extent on his LinkedIn. It's like, if you have to say that, like, what are we doing?
I remember Josh Hart used to be a big LinkedIn guy. I don't know if he still is. He updated his profile.
He looks like
achievements. He put like NBA championship.
Yeah.
Josh Hart has endorsed Jalen Brunson for saving your ass in a pinch.
Jalen Brunson yet to endorse Josh Hart for layups late in the game.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about it yet because, again, we have to see how this whole offseason shakes out. But I do think that it's something that the Lakers should be, as any team is with their star, they should always be concerning themselves with, of how much does this guy want to be here? And, there's two questions about the stars. Like, how much do we think that we want to continue to build around this guy? And, okay, if we do, then how much does he want to be here? And, I think that if Luka does eventually leave, I think the only notable thing right now is like we are going to look back on that McMenamin story as like the first seed that was planted in that saga of, the shot across the bow of, hey, they've been talking up summer of 2026. We're excited because let's get to work. We're excited to see all the things that they've been telling us about. That is, if you're like, if Jen came home and was like, you've really been talking up dinner, like really, I'm just excited to see what you made. You'd be like, okay, shit. Well, this meal better be good. Like I really shouldn't have done hamburger helper tonight. That was a mistake. It seems like she's again, it's not a threat, but it is a threat a little bit. And it's not Luka saying, I'm going to leave if you do not do, summer 2026, but it's saying, we are not married forever. I signed the extension. I gave you the show of faith. I've done everything on my end to, be a good partner here. And now it's your turn. And we have to see if the Lakers deliver on that. And if they don't, then I think we start talking about, 2 years out is the time when these stars have sort of the maximum possible leverage, because he's going to be eligible for another extension again. I don't think this summer, I think next summer, but that is the time when it's like, that's when the Bucks could have gotten a lot more for Giannis than they're going to end up getting, most likely.
Yeah.
And, if you're the Lakers and you sort of fuck this summer up, like I do think, and you sense that there's hard feelings. I mean, Rob's not going to do this because he's too focused on like remaining employed and like he knows how bad of a look. It would basically be like his tendering his resignation to trade Luka. But if they were smart, that's what they should think about doing. If if this offseason does not go well, and if Luka is expressing discontentment, you probably should just say, hey, it's time to rebuild and get younger, because we painted ourselves into a corner where we sort of have this one bullet to fire this summer. And if we can't do it and we can't execute any sort of plan or make any sort of forward momentum, then this guy is getting set to leave us. It's, is it time to just preemptively pull the ripcord? Do you call Nico Harrison and be like, hey, when did you decide to trade Luka? And
Nico was like, I shake
if you had to do it over again, what would you do differently?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like it's enough of a threat. Like you keep framing it from a standpoint of like, if this summer doesn't go well, right? Or if this summer goes poorly, Harrison, given the fact that they punted on a season where they had LeBron playing at an all NBA-ish, all-star-ish level, given the fact that they had Austin playing at the level that he was, at the number contractually that he was playing, given that Luka's own extension hadn't kicked in yet, like the Lakers, they may not, like, for as far as like the reporting about it and the way that the Lakers leak stuff and try to frame the narrative about this last offseason is like, oh, we just didn't have anything that we could have possibly done. Like, I'm sorry, you had a real opportunity this last season and you punted on it. You had real opportunities when you had LeBron James and Anthony Davis on your roster, and you punted on several of those seasons.
Yes.
And to arrive now here at 2026, not only do you need to have a better than, not bad offseason, you need to have a fucking great offseason in order for all of that to be worth it. And if you don't have that caliber of an offseason, Luka Doncic, I am telling you, I'm looking into the camera right now, I'm telling you, get out. Because these people have proven that they take their superstars for granted, right? Haven't they?
Yeah, they will waste your time.
Yeah, they've outright admitted to it. Jeannie Buss said it on the record that they were just kind of like riding out that wave with Anthony Davis and with LeBron James. And they didn't like that Anthony Davis was like, yeah, bring me in a center, bring me in some help at that position. And they were like,
win.
Okay, that's enough of that. Like
we can't have this.
Right.
Last time a star was telling us they wanted to win, we traded for Westbrook. We can't have you telling Pelinka this stuff. He's
right. So yeah, I would say that like this summer has to go like not just fairly well, not just well, not it has to be a great offseason, or at the very, very, very least, it needs to be good with a very clear path to another successful transaction window after this that could elevate an already really good roster to a championship contender. That's the bare minimum of what Rob Pelinka and this entire organization have set up for themselves, where it's like, this is what we have and the reason that I say all of this obviously is because like if I'm Luka, that's the bar that you have set for yourself here. And if you don't live up to that bar, I'm going to Mark Walter and I'm like, can we get somebody in here who can live up to that bar? Or at the very least, like build towards that bar over several years rather than demand or ask even that like I just wait for the one summer where everything is going to be figured out, when that just doesn't happen. That has never happened in the history
and you have
of the NBA.
Continuously, we've seen all of these teams have been built brick by brick. It hasn't all been built in one offseason. And so, unless the GM is coming to me and saying like, hey, I need you to wait a year, and as a show of good faith and how much I believe in my abilities to get this done the next year, I am actually not even going to ask you to pay me in the interim, because I'm literally telling you I can't do my job until next summer. And, that is how confident I am. But like, I promise you, Rob is not doing that. He's, I think very well paid. And he's like, I think you really need to pay me. I don't know how much he's making, $10 million or whatever, like $10 million to not do anything, to make sure that we have a chance to do something later. And, we can procrastinate and then just get like all of the, they sort of are operating like a college student that thinks that like one night of a little bit of coffee and cocaine can get them ready for that final the next morning.
It's Adderall. It's not cocaine.
Well, hey, look,
I guess depending on how desperate
I had a better GPA in college. I'm not sure what your strategies were, but all
right, let's go ahead and get to the most important sound on the show, and then
I apologize.
Answer all of your guys' questions. Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Ironically, a lot of guys that probably were using cocaine, like character-wise, in that shot in the show. Like if they would have continued season 3, we would have seen that.
Hell, if the Lakers hadn't have you heard some of the stuff behind the scenes about season 2 of that show?
No.
The Lakers played a very active role in season 2 and made the show actively worse.
I mean, that would explain why it wasn't as good.
Yeah. All right. R. Jones LAL writes, is Jaylen Brown a good enough number 2 next to LeBron and LBJ?
Really quickly before you answer this, can I just say, was their plan in addressing winning time? Did Rob go to them and he's like, hey, if you just wait till season 3, I think we can put together a really strong product for you. It's this is a gap season. Okay. We want nothing but filler content, but it's going to get really good and people are going to be excited in season 3. Like we're going to, with all the money that we're saving right now, we're going to have the money to sign Denzel Washington as like stunt casting in season 3.
No, he's like, look, Game of Thrones is about to end. Jeannie likes to call herself
using all their budget
Daenerys
on
Targaryen. Jeannie likes to call herself Daenerys Targaryen. What if we get the actual Daenerys Targaryen to play Jeannie?
And I'm talking about building a cinematic universe like we have never seen before. Game of Thrones winning time crossover.
Oh man.
Magic Johnson shows up at the Dance of Dragons. He's like, oh man, those dragons are going to be a problem. Whoever has the better dragons is probably going to win this war.
Getting traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves is being sent to the wall. It's just oh, sorry, R. Jones LAL.
Yeah, I apologize. R. Jones, we'll answer your question. You did pay us money to answer.
I hope that was a better answer than whatever answer you're about to get from us. On this subject, is Jaylen Brown a good enough number 2? Yeah, I mean, he was a good enough number 2 next to Jason Tatum. They won a championship that way, and Luka, I think, is better than Jason Tatum. So, yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't work, especially if LeBron is also still there.
And I will go out on a limb and say I think LeBron is better than Derek White and/or Kristaps Porzingis,
or Al Horford, or
whoever you think the third best player on that team was.
Yeah. Let's see the next question here.
That's not even controversial. Luka's definitely a better player than Jason Tatum.
Yeah, unless you're in Boston, I would say. George Love saying that a big trade just went down. Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about the Nick Claxton, Julius Randle trade there. Our biggest takeaway is just to really quickly go over it again is that the Brooklyn Nets and Chicago Bulls used a fairly sizable chunk of their cap space that could have otherwise been a threat to the Lakers to sign Austin away. And so even while Trae Young's big payday would lead one to believe that Austin was in line for a similar one. Harrison, I think I put this in the Slack, right? I kind of wondered if that actually set the bar here moving forward for those kinds of contracts where Trae Young signed for basically exactly the max that another team could sign him away at. And I kind of wonder if that's what the Lakers will essentially push to do here with Austin, where they sign him at the
I love the NBA. Nobody negotiates anymore. They're just like, well, that team gave that guy that much money. So that's the precedent.
Well, nobody wants to negotiate with each other.
Well, that's how
you get hard feelings that way.
We wouldn't. It's Trae Young's contract numbers. Those are going to fade off the books in 4 years. But if the Wizards hurt his feelings, that's going to stick with him for a while. I think they made the right call.
Totally. Let's run UNLV writing. Luka realizing that the organization has been run so poorly that he isn't likely to make the finals as a Laker unless things change now, good for him. I am on the record a few times over. I think Pete said it on the show. I think Harrison, you agree that this pressure that he and his camp are placing on the Lakers to make good on this summer of 2026 plan, like there should be no, and by the way, there are like listeners and viewers of the show who have noted that my sentiment towards Luka on this front is, for whatever reason, or at least according to those people, different than it was when LeBron was applying pressure. I'm of the opinion that superstars need to hold Rob Pelinka's feet to the fire. Like, we know that now. Otherwise, he will just sit on his hands very comfortably.
I also feel like we are not the, like, LeBron is the GM and messing up too many things. Like, we've definitely said, you know, when LeBron has been involved in things and made a mistake, he doesn't get to just abdicate any responsibility for that. But I think we've also been relatively consistent. The job of the GM is to make the personnel moves. And if your superstar is telling you to make a bad move, you don't just make it to make them happy. Your job, your responsibility is to the overall health of the franchise and the roster. And so that's always been a shitty excuse, in my opinion, anyway. Like, again, that's going back to the basketball philosophy thing. That's why you have to have your own basketball philosophy. You think, you know, I saw somebody make the comment earlier. They're like, you think like the Celtics are like, hey, you know, we're going to build this in collaboration with Jason Tatum? No. They're just doing what they want. Like, I'm sure they ask his opinion, like all teams do of their stars. I'm sure the Thunder asked Shea's opinion, but they're not, like, if Shea comes and he's like, hey, you guys, like, I really want you to trade for Dylan Brooks because we're buds, and like, can you send Chet Holmgren out for him? The Thunder are just going to say no, you know? Yeah. And like, I think, again, it's not on Luka to build a functional roster. His job is to be the engine of that roster. And it's on Rob to build the roster around him. And, you know, I don't hold it against stars when they, you know, in their finite careers, they hold teams' feet to the fire and say, hey, you need to make some moves so that I can win now. Like, I don't necessarily care about the long-term franchise. It's your job as the GM to balance those two things and try to keep the star happy while building the best team that you can and not, you know, completely mortgaging the future, which is why it's a really hard job and it's why you make a lot of money. And it's like, I'm sorry, I don't care, you know, you make enough money that I don't really care if your job's hard. That's why you got hired to do it. If you can't do it, then they should find somebody else who can.
That's the exact standard that we hold players to. Like, that's exactly how we talk about De'Aaron Fox. I don't care how difficult it is to score in the clutch on New York's defense. I don't care how difficult it is to have everything going through your brain in that play while you're shooting that layup. Like, I don't care. If you can't do that and you're making the amount of money that you're making, and I'm a Spurs fan, I'm saying bring in somebody or bring in several players who could add up to a better or steadier player than De'Aaron Fox was in that series.
Or it's really that simple. Play the guy on your roster who's already better.
Well, that also.
The Spurs might have a simpler fix than the Lakers do. You know, there's no Dylan Harper sitting on the back end of the Lakers bench, I don't think.
Dalton Connect thinks so. George Love 932. Right?
No, he doesn't. There's no way.
I bet he does. At least the people in a circle do. Why are the Lakers never part of these deals? What does this trade mean for AR and the threat of the Nets offering a deal? Do the Lakers move the pick? All right, so we've talked about the second and third parts of this question. Why are the Lakers never parts of these deals? So this is a subject that gets endless speculation about, right? Where it's like, is Rob Pelinka liked around the league? And it truly depends on who you're talking to and how much that matters. Is just completely through the eye of the beholder. And on one hand, you know, people who think that it doesn't matter would point to the fact that Rob has made plenty of trades during his time as the lead Lakers executive. Others would maybe point to the fact that, like, yeah, one of the trades that he made got somebody fired. So executives not necessarily falling over themselves to make a deal with him, because those are the kinds of deals that he is looking to make. And so like, and then on top of that, you would maybe point to how the Sacramento Kings, for example, feel about him, where they thought that they had a trade sorted out, and then found out that nope, in fact, they were trading that the Lakers instead were trading for Russell Westbrook at the 11th hour. So like,
in fairness, wasn't that like 3 GMs ago for the Kings? I feel like they just hire a new one every offseason.
I'm just saying like the general consensus about Rob Pelinka. Like,
yeah.
And it's still the same owner. But like as far as like asking why the Lakers are never involved in deals like this, well, the Lakers clearly didn't value Nick Claxton as much as like the Bulls did here, where like the Bulls just basically got Nick Claxton for free. They didn't give up much of anything. Let's see. Minnesota is sending Julius Randle and the number 28 pick in the NBA draft to the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, it doesn't
I love
really
that we never know what actually went out in trades now. It's like we got to wait till the next day to find out what the full package was.
Yeah, it doesn't say what the Bulls gave up here. Yeah, it doesn't look. So they basically just got Nick Claxton to what it amounts to be for free. And if you're the Lakers, like, is that something that they maybe should be involved in? I would probably agree if you think so. But they didn't value him that way.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I sort of agree. I don't think that Claxton is the guy next to Luka and Austin long term.
That's also fine. Let's see the next question here that we have. Man, we had a lot. Look at you guys go.
Whew. Never mind. I love draft day. I love doing these streams.
Yeah. Intel is wild. Fuck Boston. Solid comment. I would agree.
I feel like you should 100%. Refund the $5 for that. You would have said that for free.
We do all the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is that it? Before we get out of here, do you want here? Oh, we got one more at the very last second. Kristen Lee, Luka has never publicly applied pressure like this. So what is he hearing? What he is hearing from Rob must be bad. It's a solid theory. I am sure LeBron is supportive of Luka to applying pressure. LeBron wants a good team too. Good on 77. Yeah, I think this is Harrison. I think this is something that like all Lakers fans and Lakers players should be rooting for. Hell, I even think Mark Walter is probably rooting for this. He wants clarity on what Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss and the Ramby are capable of.
Texting Bill Duffy, he's like, hold their feet to the fire, man.
Yeah, I would hope that it's a true partnership, and if it turns out that the best center available isn't necessarily a lob threat, but somebody who maybe spaces the floor, then you talk to Luka and say, look, this is the best value out there that we could possibly get. And you kind of move forward that way. If you, look out at the market and say, I'm sorry, Luka, that player just isn't there. You take that one on the chin and you say, we're going to work our asses off to go out and get that player. But again, like what I think is the most important thing to take from all of this is that Rob Pelinka painted himself into this corner and now has to face that music if it is indeed playing, where Luka and his camp are very clearly making it known. No, man, we waited last year. We waited as the amount of time that you asked us to wait. We got here. You traded for Mark Williams, and some people around the league think they got cold feet. Lakers are steadfast in their belief that Mark Walton.
Just another situation where Rob is being misunderstood, Anthony. Yeah. Okay, it's
Now the Lakers, to their point, would say that Mark Williams wasn't able to finish this last year for the Phoenix Suns. But but yeah, like I think that's where for all of us, it is actually a very, very good thing that Luka Doncic and his team are saying to Rob and to Jeannie and now to Mark Walter, look, either this guy figures it out or you get somebody who does or will, and we'll see how that plays out.
And there's been, I think a lot of people talking about, there's been a lot of, hey, here's what Rob needs to do to step up. Here's what Luka needs to do to step up. But I actually have a challenge to issue to someone else. Bill Duffy, it is time to see if you can be as good of a shadow GM as Rich Paul. Rich Paul built a 2020 title team. He helped them come up with the optionality. He helped them, sort of secure those guys. He got them bubble cheese, and J.R. Smith kept the vibes high in the bubble, knew that like their specific vibe skill set was going to be very valuable in that environment. Like you can't overlook that kind of stuff. Like Bill Duffy, I want to see what you can do. So far I'm underwhelmed.
All you have is a now Slovenian Jackson Hayes that we can point to.
Yeah, we know Rob Pelinka can be strong-armed. The question is, are you a good enough agent to do it?
Yeah. Do you, Harrison, want to talk out my blood feud with Mark Stein?
Sure, why not? Let's, I already said a couple things of the show that got the show demonetized and might get me in trouble and, whatever. Let's do it.
All right. For one thing, it's not a blood feud. He reported something and I reported something else. And however this plays out is however this plays out. I have said this on the show that, I had heard Saturday afternoon that the Lakers, I had heard basically over the last like couple of weeks or so that the Lakers had kicked the tires on Isaiah Stewart and that those conversations had continued. I had made sure to specify that nothing was imminent. I had made sure to say that these were conversations that, and I also made sure to say yesterday on the show that those were conversations where the Lakers were interested in Isaiah Stewart for the sake of a potential discount that they could get on him because they would be facilitating a larger Giannis trade. I don't know that they would love Isaiah Stewart like in a vacuum. I don't know that they would love Kel'el Ware in a vacuum, right? But those are the two names that over the course of the weekend, as that Giannis stuff was mounting and as Milwaukee was trying to get Boston to include Jaylen Brown in the trade, those names came out. And of course, I think it was, I don't know, when Adam and Mark, two people who, by the way, people should know I'm very close with both of those people.
Very close. Let's not oversell it. Come on. You're not very close with.
I was a co-host with Adam for years, plural, and Mark and I, all right, maybe not very close with Mark.
Adam tolerated you for years as a good employee of the Locked On Network, and Mark Stein hasn't blocked your number yet. Like, let's not oversell these connections.
Well, that I know of. On that
You're gonna try and text him after the show. It's done.
But so Mark reports or says on that show that he hadn't heard of the Lakers being involved in any multi-team deal that could go down between Miami, Milwaukee, and whatever other teams involved or would be involved there. And of course, the internet took that, ran with it, and said that, see, we told you Anthony didn't know what he was talking about. And to that stuff, I say a few things. First and foremost, whoever Mark talks to might be different people than I talk to. So it might be literally different information. And who knows who's going to wind up being quote unquote correct on those those details. I would also add to it as kind of a general sentiment. And I said this yesterday on the show. I tweeted it out as well. And Harrison, I wanted to run this by you, a couple of things by you here. I'm not going to put you in a predicament where you have to choose between me and Mark. I'm not going to do that to you. But what I do want to say is that two things. One, and I tweeted this out. When I talk about names, it's not that I'm sitting here saying the Lakers are going to sign and trade for Walker Kessler. They are going to trade for Isaiah Stewart. They are going to trade for Kel'el Ware. the point of all of that is for me to say, I have heard that they are in on Khalil Ware. I have heard that they are in on Isaiah Stewart under the right circumstances. They have been in on Walker Kessler for as long as Miles has been in this world. Like the larger point here that is worth taking from that entire situation is that the Lakers know they need a center this summer. That's where their summer starts. And so if I were doing the job that you and I used to do at Silver Screen and Roll, and we were aggregating a show like this, what I would aggregate is
I wouldn't have aggregated you. I'm just gonna be. You would have been on my do not aggregate list.
Fair. Honestly, probably same. You would have
I'm just saying, if another local podcaster was writing news and I tried to get you, it was breaking news, and I tried to get
you would have to convince me to aggregate me.
I would have had to go to your house with a gun to get you to aggregate it. Like,
it's honestly fair. And so all right, so that's that situation specifically. Okay. What I would say about my reporting, and this is part of why I wanted you here when we had this conversation, is because you know me, I am not here to I don't benefit at all really anymore from getting aggregated or any of those things. It just doesn't, it's not something I enjoy. It's just, if I have information that I feel helps the audience or helps contextualize the situation, then great. That, I'm going to offer up that information. And it's funny because I could, and this is going to sound like a shot at other reporters, and I swear to God, I don't mean it like this. I could do the super careful, never piss anybody off type of reporter speak that is absolutely maddening to listen to. I could do that if I wanted to do that, and it would make for an objectively worse show. I would get better information, which maybe that's what matters more to the audience there, but it would be an objectively worse show to such an extent that people wouldn't listen to the show. They would wait for it to get aggregated, right? And my thinking has always been, I'm going to try to be as true to the audience as I can be. My analysis is going to be as true to the audience as it can possibly be. And if that sometimes means that I'm going to report something that doesn't play out that way, then so be it. I have made it crystal clear throughout my career. The audience to me, that the people who subscribe to the show and listen to it on a daily basis, they matter to me a hell of a lot more than the people on Twitter who were like, is Anthony a source? Is he not a source? Is he this? What did he get right? What did he get wrong? I believe in the stuff that I report. It's your guys' decision to run with it. But as all of this is playing out, it just kind of is what it is.
And I was just going to say, I mean, you've done a lot of caveating in your reporting, where you're not, it's like you said, you're not saying this and this is going to happen. You're saying, I have heard this team connected to this, which ultimately, that's just a team doing its job. I think the important point that you made is when we were aggregators, one of the things that we would do, I would always, every year I would do the free agency tracker and the Lakers rumors tracker. And it was hey, here's this guy's name and here's who's connected them to the Lakers. And here are the guys who's been connected to the Lakers. Here are the guys who, have been sort of speculated about to the Lakers and all of that stuff. And the through line there was always hey, this is another center the Lakers are being connected to. And so this is clearly a position of need that they have identified. That, it doesn't mean that they're going to get Walker Kessler or Isaiah Stewart or whoever. It just means that they are well aware that Dominating and Slovenian Jackson Hayes are not going to get it done. And they need, an upgrade at that position. And so to me, that it was always less valuable the names connected to the team than what position do they play? What does this potentially tell us about the team's mindset and how they're going to attack free agency or the draft or the offseason, the trade deadline, whatever it may be at the time. And that is it's like you always want to try and read between the lines versus just like, here's what the information is that is coming out. And I'm just taking this as gospel that because these two teams talked that this deal is close and it's going to happen. That's not necessarily it. And like, I do think that, like it matters a lot, sort of. You have to read the actual words and listen to what the person is actually saying, and not just, there has to be a degree of media literacy involved, where it's not just because I saw Legion Hoop say Lakers are interested in so-and-so that they're getting so-and-so.
Right.
Well, you want to hear what the reporter actually said, and are they, and again, like an important distinction between, are they saying that they've heard that the team's connected to this, or are they saying that league sources around the league expect that this is going to happen? And It's like, that's informed speculation, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's like, that's well-paid cap people or front office GMs or, people that are aware of intel around the league or whatever. But the Lakers always play this stuff relatively close to the vest. And so it's like, those teams, they might be speculating, those sources around the league, those league sources, they may be speculating in sort of, maybe a slightly more informed degree than Anthony and I are, but not much more than that. If everybody hates Rob Pelinka, it means they probably aren't talking to him about what his intentions are all the time.
Well, like, so there are times where I have come out and said, according to sources, this is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like when I reported that the Lakers were benching D'Angelo Russell and they were going with that all-wing starting five, that was me saying that was a thing that was about to happen, right? When I reported that JJ Redick was going to be the next head coach of the Lakers, that was me saying a thing that was going to happen, right? There were no disclaimers there. I just outright said that that's what's going to. And sometimes, and on those occasions, I said a thing, or I reported a thing that eventually wound up happening, and I got it right. Then there are other instances where I said a thing that I was told, and it wound up not being correct, and I'll eat it. I'll explain what happened there in the events that doesn't happen. And what I always try to do is try to be absolutely transparent with the audience, no matter how that plays out. If I'm correct, then I'll explain why it is that I was correct. If I was incorrect, I will explain what the hell happened there and then apologize and make sure that it doesn't happen again, or try to do everything in my power to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But as it stands right now, whether it's Stein, whether it's Fisher, whether it's Shams, whether it's whoever, right? All of us are reporting speculation.
Not in Anthony's league. Oh,
that's right. We are all reporting speculation to various levels and in various extents, things that we think are going to happen, situations that we think are going to play out a certain way right now. And if that time comes that I learned something that I think that I can explicitly state is going to happen, then I will. But until then, you got to note the disclaimers. And I think more importantly to the audience, like just for the sake of media literacy this time of year, you got to note the trends. And to me, the trends are so much more important than any one specific name. All right, that is enough navel gazing for my interest. Harrison, I've taken up way too much of your time. I will actually let you plug any number of things that you want to plug since you've been here for so long.
You let me do that at the end of every episode.
No, not this time. Like, if you want to plug,
you just cut me out. You're like, Harrison, do you have anything to plug? No, okay. Okay. I want to say, keep an eye out on the SB Nation NBA network tomorrow. Obviously, the disclaimer that I always give. I will tease here that I have gotten a look at an early build of SB Nation's upcoming app. And I will say I'm excited about it. It looks pretty smooth. It looks pretty clean. Like, if you enjoy talking about sports, and I'm guessing if you're watching this show an hour and 30 minutes in, you're probably a Lakers fan. If you enjoy the Silver Screen Roll comment section, like, you are going to have a way now to get notification, not now, soon, in the months to come, you are going to have a way to get notifications on your phone when somebody replies to your comment, or certain things like that. And it's just I think it's gonna revolutionize sort of the way that people interact with our sites, and I'm really excited about it.
Also, tomorrow is Ricky O'Donnell's national holiday, and for my money,
No, it's not.
he's my
No, we're working Ricky like a dog tomorrow. He's not getting the holiday. Don't tell him about holidays. He doesn't get those. We're but Ricky is on from, I believe, 3 a.m. Like overnight right now. And then I think we're gonna let him take a break on Friday.
And then on Friday afternoon, he's coming on the show. No, I don't know what. I'm going to reach out to him though, and ask him about whatever player I am really disappointed that the Lakers took with number 25 tomorrow evening.
Ricky, try to talk me into this guy, please.
Yeah, talk me off the ledge, Ricky. But all right, that has been this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. As I said earlier in the show, we'll have Raj on, and he and I will be on live during the draft. I will talk to Pete and to the other guys about maybe popping into the offside chat as well tomorrow, to listen there or watch alongside you guys for immediate there. We had one more super chat here right at the very end. Ryan Lucas LA, which means, you know what? I'll play it again because you guys left so many super chats. I'll go ahead and play this. Did AR lose leverage by way of the Nets and Bulls trade? What about the Walker impact? I don't think the Walker Kessler situation is impacted by this at all. I do think AR's leverage is impacted.
If anything, he loses another potential restricted free agency suitor.
Who, the Bulls?
Because the Bulls probably aren't going to chase him now.
I guess. I
don't know how feasible or realistic that was anyway, but it does, it's maybe that's a small impact.
Yeah. But then it also, I guess by that definition, maybe opened up one with Brooklyn, right?
Well, not with the Randall salary.
Unless they think he and Randall can play together. I don't know.
No, I don't know if the Nets opened up like significant space in this move.
Oh, no, they did not. That's
lost. What I mean. They took in the Randall. So I don't, maybe it decreased. But again, the Lakers being able to get him was always going to come down to, like, can they make, do they decide to make an offer that the Jazz don't have the stomach to match?
Yeah. Well, that's something that the Lakers have been threatening to do. And that is like the leverage that they're trying to use that, to lead to some kind of sign and trade deal with Utah for Kessler. But the problem is Kessler is like the one guy on their roster that they probably can't lose. And
I also don't think that Austin Reeves necessarily loses a ton of leverage here, because I think the Nets probably could make some other moves to get up to his number if they really wanted to offer him. And it's also like we're talking about for Kessler, Reeves is not, and even, maybe even more so with Reeves, because he can just leave to go wherever he wants and take whatever offer he decides to take. The Lakers' leverage is not necessarily dictated by other teams. It's dictated by, can they make Austin feel respected enough that he, takes their offer versus another team. There's still some recruitment that has to go on here.
Yeah. And also the structure of Austin's deal is really important, and that's something that they're going to be negotiating with him for. So they don't want to completely lowball him and then also be like, hey, also, could you take a contract that actually depreciates over time? That's how you piss off somebody who they consider critical to their success. All right. Now that's going to do it here. Have a great rest of your nights, everybody. Make somebody else's. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Until tomorrow, have a great rest of your evenings. Make somebody else's. And Raj and I will talk to you then. Thanks, Harrison.
Bye, everyone.